Something I've been doing since 2011 is tracking my favorite movies from each year. I'm a movie junkie, cinephile. I love when the Oscars get announced. I love when critics talk about their top 10 movies for the year. And so I've been, every year around Oscar time, I've been publishing my favorite movies of the year on my website. Been doing it since 2011. I did top 10 in 2011, and I say favorite movies instead of the best movies because I don't pretend to be able to see everything, and I'm not suggesting these are the best made films of the year. They're just my favorite. So man, 2011 favorite movie of the year was Moneyball. 2012 favorite movie of the year was The Dark Knight Rises. I saw it twice in the theater, and I realize it's considered the lesser of the three, but man, it's a great movie and it's a great trilogy. 2013 I made a top 25, although I shouldn't have. I should have just made a top 20 because these bottom five are Gravity was my favorite film of that year. Place Beyond the Pines #2, just rewatched that. Man, that's a great film. 2014, Calvary was my favorite film of the year, and man, that is on my top of all time among them. Interstellar was my #2. I give a lot of credit to like ambition and scope. So Christopher Nolan always makes a list because his ambition is almost the biggest of any year he's making a movie. The scope of his films are so massive and he goes for it. And whether or not they're entirely successful, if they're mostly successful, they really impact me. I thought Interstellar was a masterpiece, but even Dunkirk, which, let's see, that was last year. I'll get to that. 2015, my favorite film was The End of the Tour. I actually have a vlog episode just talking about my experience with that film, and it had a really profound emotional impact to me. So it was my favorite film of that year. 2016, Hell or High Water was my favorite of that year. Manchester by the Sea was #2. Last year, Dunkirk was #1 for a while. And then A Ghost Story took its place. And A Ghost Story continues to be such an influential film for me. I love that movie so much. And it's talk about two different scales. Dunkirk is massive. Budget, scope, ambition. Ghost Story is tiny. I don't know, $100,000 film. Very, very small. I only did a top 10 from last year. I didn't think it was a particularly strong year for film. All right, so this year, I'm going to update my blog with the top movies of 2018. Man, there's a few films I still haven't gotten to see. Destroyer, I really wanted to see, didn't get a chance to. You know, let's look up the Oscar nominations here because I haven't seen all of those, but I gotta be honest, I am very underwhelmed with this year's Oscar nominees. Talking about Best Picture, ones I haven't seen. Did not see Bohemian Rhapsody, and I love Queen, but for some reason I just didn't really feel a strong pull to see the movie, and the critical response has just confirmed that. And I don't just mean, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, but like critics that I read and respect and were really underwhelmed by it. And I thought it was a joke when it got nominated for a Golden Globe. Apparently it's not, because it's now nominated for an Oscar. What do I know? Haven't seen it though, and I don't know if I'll get a chance to before Oscar night. Green Book, another one that just is lighting up awards, but it just looks so mediocre. I mean, it just seems so standard, and I love the team. Like, the actors and critical responses have been really middling, so I'm not saying it's not a good movie. I'm just expressing why I haven't run to see it. Everything else I've seen, Vice, I just saw, won't make my top 15. A lot I liked about it, but ultimately I thought it was a miss. Roma certainly gets an honorable mention, but man, I wish I was more taken by this movie than everybody else. I feel like I'm missing something. The Favorite was fine, enjoyed it. Won't make my top 15. Maybe it's an honorable mention. A lot to like about it. The performances are all worthy. I'm all glad to see those three women get nominated. So anyway, without further ado, honorable mentions. First Man, love the ambition, love the scope. Ultimately, was just an honorable mention for me. Game Night, awesome film, lots of fun. The Sisters Brothers, a very little seen, little known Western starring Joaquin Phoenix and John C. Reilly, Jake Gyllenhaal. A lot of fun. My heart is warming to the whole Marvel Universe, mostly because my kids love it, so I get into it. Infinity War was a lot of fun. It's very rewatchable. But Black Panther, I am glad to see its Best Picture nominee. It's an honorable mention for me. It's not as rewatchable, in my opinion, as Infinity War, but I saw it twice, and it made me cry both times I saw it at the same point at the end when Killmonger talks about just being some, poor kid in Oakland dreaming about fairy tales. Like, I actually was moved to tears both times I saw it because of how profound that statement was, and within this crazy superhero movie that he earned that line and it worked. So props to Ryan Coogler for achieving that. All right, with any list, a lot of these are interchangeable, and if you ask me in 6 months, things might be different. I do take as long as I can to make the list, because I'll see a film and I'll love it and I'll put it in a certain spot, and then 3-4 months later I'll have forgotten about it. So how a film sticks with me is really important, and my own desire to rewatch it or to own, the Blu-ray all really factors in. Number 15, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Melissa McCarthy deserves a nomination. A great film. Number 14, Searching, starring John Cho. I really loved the scope of the film. The whole film takes place on a desktop computer. Love those kind of gimmicks, and it really worked. Their attention to detail was impeccable. What was really a standard sort of crime drama thriller was really elevated into something really cool. 13, Black Klansman. There's a lot that worked about this movie, a lot that didn't work. It's still one of the best of the year, and I think Spike Lee deserves the Best Director nomination, and not just as a career sort of honorable one. I think he might deserve to win that one, because what he did tonally with that film was really remarkable. 12, Leave No Trace. A small, quiet, underseen film from Deborah Granick, who did Winter's Bone, and a really just quietly moving film about a father and his daughter, and honestly a metaphor to me for letting your kids go into adulthood. Beautiful film. 11, I really wanted this to make my top 10, but it just got edged out by better films. A Quiet Place, loved it. Great genre thriller. Seen it twice. It breaks down a little bit as you think about it logically, but it was a blast the first time, it was a blast the second time. Highly rewatchable, and just a simple genre thriller or horror film. Usually every year there's one really great one, and I love them when they're done well, and this was the one for me for last year. Number 10, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This might be the best Marvel movie I've ever seen. It is so dang near flawless. It's hilarious, it's smart, the animation's pretty breathtaking. I loved it. 9, First Reformed. Definitely bummed to see this underrepresented at the Oscars. It got a screenplay nomination, but Ethan Hawke deserves a nomination. This is one of those examples where the film has grown for me over time. It wasn't in my top 10 until recently, when I just couldn't shake it. I would think of it and I was like, man, I really want to rewatch that. Man, I want to buy that. It takes some swings creatively, and it really plays with its interpretability, what it means, but it is a just masterfully written and performed film. Number 8, American Animals. No one saw this movie, no one's talking about it. Shot in Charlotte, so that's cool. True story. It's by the guy who did The Imposter, which is one of the greatest documentaries ever made. And if you like The Imposter, American Animals is a narrative, but it bends genres a little bit, and it definitely feels like it's a film from the same guy. If you like heist films, it really plays into that, but then really goes somewhere really profound and emotional. Really makes you feel the reality of what they did and what something like this would do for all the people involved. I hate that this film is sort of slipping through the cracks, because it deserves awards. 7, Annihilation. Came out way at the beginning of the year from Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina, which have made my top 10 for the year it came out. You could tell the distributor didn't have faith in it by the way they marketed it and released it, and thankfully critics and maybe even audiences showed up. It's crazy, it goes big swings, it doesn't always work, but where that movie goes is pretty breathtaking, pretty mind-blowing. And I just remember watching the climax, and it's like you have one of those experiences when you're watching like 2001: A Space Odyssey or some otherworldly thing that you've never quite saw before. And it just really messes with your brain as you're watching it. You can feel yourself witnessing something crazy that you don't fully understand. Annihilation had that impact on me. And then thematically, it's themes of, how our propensity for self-destruction as people can lead to new birth and new creation was something I really resonated with when I saw it, had a really emotional reaction to. So, it has to make my top 10. Number 6, A Star is Born. This is the movie I saw the most recently. Just saw it. And I loved it. And I could see it either growing or going down, because the first half of the film, the first third of the film, is pretty breathtakingly flawless. Like, I could watch Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga getting to know each other for hours. Then it ultimately doesn't quite sustain that sort of excitement, but man, Bradley Cooper's amazing. His direction is amazing. Lady Gaga really impressed me. She was great. The music's great. Number 5, the only Netflix release on here I see. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the Coen Brothers film. It's 6 short films all about the American West and sort of about death. One of the few that I watched and then the next day watched all over again. Loved it. Loved every vignette. Nobody can write like the Coens. Number 4, Widows. Steve McQueen's just pulpy genre thriller crime drama. I love crime dramas. You know, whether it's heist films, this is another heist movie. And what an antithesis to American Animals. 2 very different heist movies. Talk about a genre that is still got legs. Both of those movies are like no other heist movie you'll see. And Widows was just incredible. Number 3, 8th Grade. I don't know if this deserves 3, definitely the top 5, but it stuck up there because I had I had a strong emotional reaction to it at the end. First being surprised that I was just loving this movie about this 8th grade girl and relating to it, but then where it goes in the end and sort of getting a metaphorical sort of connecting with it and on that level was really strong. Number 2, The Old Man and the Gun. Just a simple, old-fashioned, another heist movie. Directed by David Lowery, starring Robert Redford. Talk about just watching 2 people talk. You could watch Robert Redford and Sissy Spacek talk over a coffee table for hours. They are just perfection, and I loved every minute of this movie. Watched it twice. Loved every minute the second time around. Number 1, You Were Never Really Here, directed by Lynn Ramsey, starring Joaquin Phoenix as a hitman. This is a punch in the gut. It is dark, but man, I loved it. And I loved where it took me. I loved everything about it. It was number 1 when I saw it. I put it right there. And I was like, I don't think this is going to get eclipsed. And nothing I saw again last year really came near the skill of what those filmmakers were doing, you know, the actors, everybody involved, and what it did to me sort of emotionally. I just loved it. And it's funny to sort of look at the Oscars where it was completely shut out, but then look at the Independent Spirit Awards, which continue to be a force for good. Let me look those up because they continue to represent, at least for me, the films I love. So look at their best features, 5 of them. 8th Grade, First Reformed, Leave No Trace, You Were Never Really Here. Okay, so 4 of them are on my top 10. And the 5th one, If Beale Street Could Talk, which was a good film. Maybe it deserved an honorable mention. Didn't ultimately connect with it strongly and a lot to love, but didn't love it enough to talk about, you know, the Independent Spirit Award nominations really coming in line with myself. So anyway, there you have it. Favorite films for 2018. Excited for 2019. I've only seen Glass as far as 2019 release, which is a weird movie, and honestly, probably only for the diehards. I ultimately enjoyed it, and I liked what they did with it. But if you're not a diehard, Unbreakable, Split guy, and then I don't know how you could possibly really enjoy it that much. But anyway, hopefully 2019 will be a good year. Peace.